feels like there needs to be change at Baylor football, and we probably should have seen this coming.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello there, Bears fans. Welcome to a melancholic edition of Locked On Baylor, brought to you by Mazda and part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Cam Stuart of ESPN Central Texas and the Wicked Boston Show on Rogue Media Sports Network. I appreciate you guys making it your first listen today and every day, and we're going to air some things out today. We're going to talk about why there needs to be change in this Baylor football program and why we can't be accepting this year after year. We will also go over our first name of the coaching carousel because it's really intriguing and I think would be an absolute slam dunk for Baylor if you could get this guy to Waco. And then we'll look at the quarterback. What went wrong for Sawyer Robertson yesterday? It was his first bad game basically in a Baylor uniform. So what did Dave Aranda say about what went wrong for his QB? All that and more coming up on this episode of Locked On Baylor. But we start where we start. It was a frustrating loss once again to TCU, who they lose to all the time, who Dave Aranda has made a living out of losing to, 1-5 now against the Horned Frogs. And only one of those times did TCU have like a much better team. Well, maybe twice, but only one time that TCU was really elite. And maybe that's even worse for Dave Aranda's 1-5 record against them. But it happens again. Baylor actually has a shot at the end. You know, a lot of us didn't get to see it, but they did recover an onside kick, had some Hail Marys. It ends up becoming Sawyer Robertson's third pick of the day. It's 42-36, the final score. And that honestly flatters Baylor quite a bit because this was 42-21. This thing was over. They got smacked in the mouth once again by a team that looked to be just on the same level as them. Not worse than them, but not definitively way better than them. And they got their butts kicked. Again, coming off a bye week, which is super disappointing. And Dave Aranda said so as well. And then he gave such a damning answer about the play after the second lightning delay where TCU had the ball in Baylor territory. And apparently they had gone over it quite a bit and they still couldn't stop it.
That play where we were on and off and we came back on the field, I think we had talked about that play for an hour. And then for that to happen, it's unbelievably frustrating, unbelievably, aggravating. And so it's where we're at. You know,
if you're a Baylor fan and you follow this every week, every day, especially here on Locked On Baylor, like if this is a part of your life and you hear your sixth-year head coach say that and you don't have a stroke, all the power to you. If you're not throwing your clicker or your laptop into the wall after hearing that, as someone who loves Baylor football, you've got a lot more strength than I do. An hour, he says. We went over that for an hour, and we still couldn't get it right. And then he says that's where we're at right now. And that's the most damning part. This should not be where we're at right now. When you bring back the amount of talent that Baylor did this year, and you're coming off a second half of the season where you were 6-0 going into the bowl game, and this is the best you could do with your momentum. 4-3, haven't beaten a really good team yet, and you go over a play for an hour and can't stop it, and that's just where we're at right now? How is that not damning? How does the athletic director hear that and not think, we've got to have a change here if this is where we're at? Because this should not be where we're at. This should not be where we're at. And I know some people are going to say, Cam, you overhyped him going into this year. That's what it is. You overhyped this quarterback, you overhyped the offense and all that. And maybe that's true because I really thought with what they brought back, they should have been a 9 or 10 win team. And it looks like they're not going to be that. By some miracle, they could be a 9-win team. But it looks like they're not going to be that. And maybe that is on me. But at week 7, game number 7 of year 6, we should at least be seeing improvement And we're not. They got worse from last year. And we're just supposed to be okay with it. And what really sucks about this is we should have seen this coming. We should have seen this coming. You know why? Because we've seen it in our conference very recently. Remember, after Dave Aranda's last game in 2023, where it looked like he was for sure going to be fired at the end of a 3-9 season, they blew that late lead to West Virginia. Neil Brown, West Virginia's coach, came up to him and offered him some comforting words and saying, you can get out of this. And he said that because Neil Brown was as good as fired at the beginning of that year, and that was West Virginia's 8th win. And they would go 9-4 that season. Ended it on a nice little winning streak. Before that year, Neil Brown had been at West Virginia for 4 seasons and had one winning season in those 4. It was a 7-6 year. And then won 9 games in the 5th one, kept his job. They underwhelmed in the 6th season, and he was fired. And look at West Virginia now. They've had to strip the whole thing down. Does that sound familiar to you? Going into last year, Dave Aranda had been at Baylor for 4 seasons and had 1 winning season. And then he won 8 games, and his job was saved. And then the next year, year 6, was underwhelming. Will it come to the same ending? Because it seems like everybody is sick of this. And I know social media is not the exact pulse of the world. I know. And I'll include YouTube in that. But everywhere I look, people want to change. The fans want to change. The students want to change. The boosters that I know want to change. The former players really want to change. I don't know if you see some of this, but I know some of them watch and listen to this show. The guys who were here in the good times and the transitional times and some downright bad times all agree that this can't go on like this. That Baylor can be better than this. And it seems like everyone but the administration at the university believes that Baylor can be better than this. And trolling opposition fans, trolling TCU and Tech fans say we can't be better than this. But they've seen it up close. We've seen it up close. And this administration has seen it up close. But they're the only ones that say, you know what, we can't be better than this. Because Dave Aranda is a 500 coach. And they say that's okay. We're all right with that. That's how we want our football program to be. Florida is not okay with that. They had a 500 coach and they fired him. This weekend, they said, that's not good enough for us. Penn State had a guy with a 700 winning percentage at that school, and they said, that's not good enough for us. Oh, Cam, you can't be comparing Baylor to Penn State and Florida. Those are too much more blue blood teams. Okay, how about Colorado State? They had a coach who had a couple of losing seasons, turned them around last year. They won 8 games. And it was going in the wrong direction this year. And you know what they did? They fired him. They freaking fired him. Oklahoma State had the best coach in their history. And in year 19 and 20, it wasn't going right. And they fired him. But Baylor, we're saying that because they were so bad 30 years ago, completely ignoring how freaking good they were 10 years ago, they say we should be happy with 6-6 and being 500 and just being happy to participate in this thing. And if it continues to go like this, not only will the morale completely be sucked out of the fan base, if it hasn't already, which is being nice to say it hasn't been already, but if this continues, Baylor is going to get left behind. There is going to be a college football rapture, and we will be left behind. College football is getting more concentrated, not more broad. Like, look at the new Pac-12, man. That is a laughingstock. It is more concentrated, college football. And Baylor is going to get left behind if it keeps going like this. But that's more for tomorrow's episode. I need to hear from you guys. Like, when is enough enough? If you're not already on the train of we need a change here at Baylor, what is it going to take? When is enough enough? When do we say, no, we can be better than that? Because other teams in the conference are saying, no, we can be better than that. Tech said we can be better than that. And that has worked tremendously for Texas Tech. Now Oklahoma State saying we can be better than that. TCU said we can be better than our greatest coach ever because it's not going in the right direction. And then next year, they played for a national championship. And I'm supposed to accept that Baylor should just be happy with a coach that goes 500 and never has his team ready to play, never wins big games. We should just be okay with that. If I had told you at this point in the season how SMU was going to look, how Auburn was going to look, how up and down Arizona State was going to be, and honestly, how TCU was going to look, and then tell you you're only going to win one of those games, you would be up in arms too. No matter how much I overhyped this team, if I had told you how the rest of those teams were going to shake out and say you would only beat one of them in a game that you led for 0 seconds, you'd say, this isn't good enough. This is underwhelming. We need something new. So let me know what you think in the comment section below. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel because it helps us out big time and it makes us the #1 Baylor football show on YouTube. So thank you for those of you who make it your first listen today and every day. Coming up next, we're finally going to talk about a name here. Okay, not Neil Brown. We're going to talk about a name for who Baylor should look at to be their next football coach. And it's one of the most intriguing ones in America. That's next on Locked On Baylor. But first, today's episode is brought to you by Mazda's moving the game forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it is, of course, about redefining it. Okay? There are moments that do more than just put points on the board. They move crowds, they move culture, and keep moving the game forward. This week's player that moved the game forward is Josh Cameron. He's really the only one I can pick in this game. I mean, it looked like Josh Cameron was the only one trying to put the team on his back in this game. 8 catches for 86 yards. For 33 yards after the catch, by the way. No drops on the game, even though the weather was only affecting one team, and had that great 68-yard punt return that was called back for kind of a chintzy block in the back call. So Josh Cameron gets it this week. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight or every player, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, let's do this thing. I think Baylor football needs a change. Technically, they can still win 9 games, and that would technically satisfy my ultimatum. But right now, Baylor is underwhelming, and I think they need a change at the top. And a lot of people believe they need a change at the top. But then the next question that comes is this. Okay, if Baylor's just going to get rid of Dave Aranda, Big 12 championship coach, Sugar Bowl winning coach Dave Aranda, if we're going to get rid of him, where do you go? Where do you go, smarty pants? Who's the next guy? And I always say we do kind of have to wait for the most part until November because that's when we're really finding out whom the group of 5 guys are. Like if you had done this in mid-October of 2022, you might not be picking Willie Fritz. But by the end of November, you were picking Willie Fritz. So that is something we need to take into account. But as is the case with college football these days, the coaching carousel becomes a lot more defined earlier in the season. Oklahoma State has fired their coach. Florida has fired their coach. UAB and Colorado State have fired their coaches. And of course, the biggest one of the year leads to the most intriguing name. I give to you the next head coach of the Baylor Bears, not Neil Brown, but James Franklin. The most interesting name on the market right now, James Franklin. The dude's resume is impeccable. Penn State feels they can go further, right? They feel like they need a guy who can take them to the next level. But James Franklin, by the resume, is bar none one of the best coaches in college football. And if we are going to hype up the Big Ten, which everyone in the country wants to do, and you look at this dude's record in the Big Ten, then there is no doubt he is one of the best coaches in the country. And honestly, Baylor should be just sending out a trail of rose petals from State College to Waco, Texas. It should be Palm Sunday, man. Palms on the ground. Bring him here. There is no one better on the market that you can get right now than James Franklin. And by the way, it's not that crazy. I really don't think it's that crazy to assume that you can go out and get him. Okay. And look, there's absolutely arguments to be made for Jeff Traylor and TJ Kinney and some of these other guys in the market, but there's no one better than James Franklin. And when you look at, like, say, a job like Florida coming open and Florida's big swings and misses recently, do you think they're looking at that and saying what we're saying? And, oh, look how great, James Franklin's numbers are at Penn State, how great his record is, what he's accomplished there? Or do you think they're thinking the same thing that Penn State did and said, well, he can't win the game in a big conference. He can't do it. So we can't have him in Florida in the SEC. Because I think they're probably thinking that way. And they don't want to take what they would perceive as a reach. For Baylor, it's not a reach, okay? This dude is dynamite. Let me just read off some of the things that James Franklin has done before you get in the comments and say, oh, James Franklin can't win the big game. Yeah, he can't beat Ohio State. Can't beat national championship Michigan. I don't think Baylor's doing that anyway. But James Franklin, 104-45 at Penn State. That is a .698 winning percentage. He wins 70% of his games. At Penn State in the Big Ten, Dave Aranda wins about 51% of his games at Baylor in the Big 12. Okay? Like, these two are not created equal, even though they look kind of similar. James Franklin won 10 games at Penn State 6 times. 6 times. Dave Aranda's done that at Baylor once in 6 years. James Franklin has done it 6 times, and he's won 11-plus games 4 times. And, oh, by the way, he took a team last year with a worse quarterback than Sawyer Robertson in Drew Auer, despite what some of the analysts will tell you. He is a worse quarterback. And they won 13 and went to the Final Four last year. The year of our Lord, 2025, James Franklin was coaching college football playoff games and winning them. And if he had had Sawyer Robertson, he probably would have won the whole dang thing, but maybe that's just me. Won the Big Ten in 2016. Won the Division 3 times and went to the Final Four last year. Oh, but Cam, I mean, Penn State, the resources, 100,000 in the stadium. How can you compare? Okay, fine. Let's compare to what he did before he was at Penn State. When he was at Vanderbilt, the toilet bowl of major college football. The worst team in the best conference year after year after year. It's easy. If you woke up, if you were just born in 2025, it's easy for you to think that Vanderbilt is one of the great programs in college football with what they've done this year. Or if you've been in a coma for the last 90 years, you can say, oh yeah, well, of course, Vanderbilt's good. But if you're under the age of 90, to you, Vanderbilt means bad football. And when James Franklin was there, he won 9 games at Vanderbilt. Twice he won 9 games there. Like, that should already put you up for the College Football Hall of Fame. Won 9 games there twice. Had 1 losing season, and it was 6-7. 1 losing season at Vanderbilt in 4 years. Dave Aranda has more losing seasons than that at Baylor. He's got 3. And James Franklin could only manage to do it once, 1 game under 500 at Vandy. Dave Aranda had a 2-7 and a 3-9 at Baylor in the Big 12. And he wasn't even putting together losing seasons at Vandy in the SEC. Pay him whatever, man. Blank check. Blank check for this dude. And now if I'm him, I'm weighing probably Baylor versus Oklahoma State. And then that's where your job looks even worse. Oklahoma State's had guys who have gone on to do much better. Jimmy Johnson from Oklahoma State. Les Miles from Oklahoma State. Baylor doesn't have that. For better or for worse. You know, sometimes it's a good thing. Sometimes it's a bad thing. But if you're James Franklin, you might look at Oklahoma State and think, I get the same recruiting base here. I've got boosters who are willing to put a lot into the program, which is what it sounds like it's at Baylor too. But they obviously have some bigger donors at the top at Oklahoma State. And then he probably watches the Oklahoma State games on Saturday with a team that is genuinely awful, one of the worst in the Power Four, and sees that they're putting 50, 60,000 people in there every weekend in Stillwater, Oklahoma. That might change his mind a little bit. But you want a job that can get you to the college football playoff, that can win you conference championships, and not quite have the pressure of Penn State, not quite have the rigor of the Big Ten schedule. James Franklin to Baylor should be what on all of our wish lists. It should be at the very top, man. Like James Franklin got fired at Penn State because for the most part, he can't win 11 or 12 games. Dave Aranda is going to get fired at Baylor because for the most part, he can't win 8 or 9 games in the Big 12. Like, this is easy. This is like just should be at the top of every Baylor fan's Christmas list this year. James Franklin coaching the Bears. Like, no ifs, ands, or buts. I don't want to hear about his big game record, man. He would be infinitely better than anybody else on the market when it comes to coaching the Baylor Bears. But let me know what you think in the comment section below. If you got other names, let me hear them. I probably know some of them, but let me know the names if you've got them. Let me know in the comment section below. Then be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, because we come at you every weekday on YouTube and then wherever you get your podcasts as well. It's the #1 Baylor football show on this grand old app called YouTube, baby. And it's because of you guys, you fans, who make it your first listen today and every day. When we come back, we're going to talk about what Dave Aranda said about Sawyer Robertson and whether there's cause for concern here about Baylor's quarterback after the performance he put out against TCU. Let's do it next on Locked On Baylor. But first, today's episode of Locked On Baylor is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. NFL season is here. You know that. You love it. And FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. You pick a bet, you put down $5, and if it hits, you're going to unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Boy, did I win some money on FanDuel this weekend, man. Did I ever? Okay, because they gave me so many different ways to play. I actually hit on a parlay. I did a bunch of player props. That was all my winning on Sunday was player props. And then I follow the live lines during the games, and I feel good about it. I lost on a big one the other day. Someone that was 16.5. They were down 21-0. And I was like, you know what? They're coming back. You know who it was? I think it was Jacksonville. And I was like, they're coming back, and I'm feeling it. Didn't win on that one, but I win money every weekend on FanDuel. So what are you waiting for? Just visit FanDuel to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Today's episode is also brought to you by Monarch. You might remember them as Monarch Money. We call them Monarch in this house now because they've changed their name. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or what they're worth, whether it's the 401ks, the properties, or the investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch. Its all-in-one personal finance tool brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. That's like you and me. You can identify if you aren't saving as much as you thought. Monarch helps you notice an inefficient investment allocation and discover forgotten 401ks from past jobs. They can put money right back in your pocket. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with the code LOCKEDON, COLLEGE, LOCKEDONCollege. So I think the problems with Baylor overall do stem from the head coach and the coaching staff. But if you're one of those people who are defending Dave Aranda at this point, one of the things you're probably pointing out is whatever the nuance is of every game. Because, Saturday, I know there were some people who said it. There were some people who said it to me. How are you going to call for Dave Aranda's job right now? How are you going to blame this on the defense when the offense was as worse as it's looked all year? They got some pretend points at the end, but it was Sawyer Robertson's worst game since probably Utah back in 2023. Remember that? Utah and UT, when he was just being thrown into an offense he had never played in before and was kind of thrown to the wolves. Other than that, Other than that, since the Sawyer Renaissance last year, this has been the worst game. Threw 3 picks, one of them on a Hail Mary at the end, but completed less than half his passes. And that's something you never see from Sawyer, 48% at 25 of 52. So, yeah, he threw for 318 yards. He threw for a couple of touchdowns, but no one's going to sit here, and certainly not Sawyer Robertson is going to sit here and say, yeah, that was a good game by the quarterback. Okay. And it wasn't. Do I give some more slack to a guy who has been their best player the last calendar year? Yeah, I do. Just like I did when Josh Cameron had the 2 fumbles against Arizona State. Yep. Sometimes it happens. I get frustrated that the rest of the team around him isn't good enough to keep them in a game when he is not perfect in a game, or they let one of the worst rushing offenses in America go for 196 yards on the ground. Yeah, I get frustrated at that too. But certainly we do have to point out that it was not Sawyer's best game, not by a long shot. And it was a big reason why they lost. But when Dave Aranda was asked about it, he kind of had a pretty blunt answer.
We have to block better. Yeah, we have to block better. And we've got to be able to run the ball better. And I think when we don't run the ball and we become one-dimensional, then we try too hard in that being one-dimensional and we create mistakes. Some are caused, some are created by us, but it's because we're one-dimensional.
And that is the case, man. I mean, we talked about it this week. Like, this was a perfect time for Baylor's running game to get back going. Even though Bryson Washington's not at 100%, it's time for them to get back going against a bad rush defense and have a balanced passing attack. They ran 89 plays and 52 of them were passes. That's not a balanced attack. No one's going to sit here and tell you that was a balanced attack. And I think this was a game where you really see, I said before the season, they might lose a game because they don't have Dawson Pendergrass there. I think the rest of the offense is good enough that it's not more than one game. But if there was one game, this was it. This was it. And again, Bryson is banged up, and man, he's gutting through it. From some of the stories I've heard about him this year, man, he is really gutting through it. But there's only so much your quarterback can do when you can't establish the line of scrimmage whatsoever. And it's a TCU team that was not good up front going into this game, and they bullied Baylor in this game. They bullied them. You would think watching this game that their defense was akin to Auburn's, and it's not. It's not. It's not akin to that. So there's only so much the quarterback can do when it's all on his plate. And his number one receiver, pass catcher, and Michael Trigg had a couple of big drops in this game. And guys couldn't hang on to the football on the Baylor side when it was raining, but TCU had no problem, no such problem. So Sawyer's fault they lost, he certainly had a big hand in it with just having a bad game. But when you look at what went wrong around him, I think it's tough to just say, yeah, Sawyer's the reason. Sawyer's the reason we lost here. And it's just too bad that, again, he has one bad game this year. One. And his team can't keep him in it. Not really. I mean, I get it. They had a chance at the end, but maybe it's because none of us could watch it in real time, but it didn't feel like they had a real shot at the end. But you heard it there. If you can't establish the run, there's not going to be a lot that this Baylor offense can do. And as I said on the post game on Saturday, it's worth noting again here, like, you've got 4 top 30 defenses in the back half of your schedule, the second half of your schedule, and TCU was not one of them. In fact, that's the easiest defense you'll face in the final 6 games of the season, and you can't get it done against them, then yes, I'm very, very, very concerned. Neil Brown in that last year went 6-6. And you look at this schedule and the defenses that Baylor has to face and the places they have to go, this could be a 6-6 team. And I hate saying that because I really felt there was so much more here. But if they can't wake up until they're 14 points down, you're not gonna come back against these teams every week. Not in this conference, man. Try the ACC for that. Try the Pac-12 for that. You're not going to do it in the Big 12. I'm sorry. And so this looks like right now a 6-6 team as we sit here at 4-3. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Let me know what you think about what change needs to happen, if at all, what you think about the rest of the season, and And I'm sure some of you have some gotcha moment for Sawyer Robertson. I think he's still going to finish with some pretty damn good numbers this year and have a damn good season. And we should all be thanking him and some of these offensive guys and a short handful of defensive guys too, who have really shown out the last season and a half and have brought this team some fun moments over the last year. But let me know what you think in the comment section below. Then be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. It's completely free and it helps me keep my job here in this job that I really like at Locked On Baylor. Thank you guys for making it the #1 Baylor football show on YouTube and making it your first listen today and every day. We will see you tomorrow, and I'm promising it's going to try to be more hopeful tomorrow on your favorite show, Locked On Baylor.